most well-known onion in the St. John Valley is the Eschalotte. This small bunching onion is prized by all the valley's gourmet cooks. The onion's bulb is barely the size of a quarter, but an old-fashioned meal of baked beans, red hot dogs, ploys is not complete without des ichalette. In addition, the green stem of this onion is equally prized for making soups, stews, and patates fricassées. Growing eschalotte is an art, a science, and a folklore. The bulbs are planted 3 days before to 3 days after the full moon of July or August. The bulbs winter under the snow and grow in the spring, and then are harvested in early June. The origin of echalotes is unknown, but bulbs to plant are not readily available commercially. Rather, bulbs are handed down from generation to generation and can only be obtained from someone who is already planting them. By early June, the clumps of eschalotte are ready to harvest. Although a single bulb is planted, it forms a clump of 10 to 20 individual bulbs. Harvesting begins by digging each clump out of the ground. Because the root system is all bunched together, the entire clump comes out in one piece. This is also the time to consider keeping aside several of the best clumps for later planting. These are left in the garden until June 15th, at which time they are harvested and left to dry. These clumps will then be broken down into individual bulbs and planted at the full moon of July or August. The harvested clumps are then divided into their individual bulbs. With a tangled root system, each bulb is pulled apart from the clump. Once all the clumps are separated, they must be peeled. This begins by cutting off the root and peeling the outside brown covering. The attached green stems are also cut off and kept aside. These will be made into des Herbes Salée. When all the bulbs are peeled, they are then washed, rinsed, and drained. Using a clean, sterilized canning jar, the bulbs are put inside the jar. When the jar is half full, coarse salt is added. The amount of salt depends on the time of the harvest. If the bulbs are harvested before June 15th, 1/4 cup of salt is added. If harvested after June 15th, 1/3 cup of salt is used. Then finish filling the jar with bulbs. Add water, filling the jar within 1 inch from the top. When filled, a lid is placed on the jar and closed tightly. Shake the jar to dissolve the salt, and then place the jar upside down in the refrigerator for 3 days. Then the jar is turned right side up and left in the refrigerator. In a week, the echalotes are ready to eat. Look at this great meal of baked beans, red hot dogs, ploys, and des echalotes. Now don't forget about the green stems that were set aside. These will be made into des Herbes Salée. The stems are now rinsed and well drained. These are then cut into 1-inch pieces. Cut the entire green stem. Place them in a bowl. Once all the green stems are cut, put a layer of cut up stems at the bottom of the jar. Cover these with a layer of coarse salt. Add another layer of green stems and another layer of salt. Keep adding layers of green stems and salt until the jar is full. Occasionally, press down on the layers to pack the jar well. Once the jar is full, place a lid on the jar and store them in the refrigerator. After a week, they are ready to be used in soups, stews, and patates fricassees. How about this great bowl of tomato rice soup made with des Herbes Salées? Absolutely delicious.